Oh.
Here I am today with Jeff Grout, and it is truly the apprentice has met the master, because, Jeff, you have interviewed Richard Branson, Alan Sugar, Sebastian Coe, and Gordon Ramsay. Now, tell me, Gordon Ramsay, was he as angry at you as he is when he's normally in the kitchen?
He was angry about everything. He was angry about vegetarians. He was angry about noisy customers and whatever. But he was very, very passionate about what he does.
He's a passionate man. There's no doubt about that. This is an incredible. Your sort of road to success. I mean, you're a van driver. You're labourer, and then you went on to become the UK managing director of the largest recruitment consultancy, specialist recruitment consultancy in the world, and they turn over about 5 billion.
They do now worldwide. That's right.
I mean, how did you go from being a labourer and a van driver to heading the firm like that?
Well, I started out after university. I worked in local government for a number of years. And I'm a chartered town planner by profession. And it soon dawned on me that I wasn't very good at town planning, and I didn't really enjoy it. And in fact, I went traveling around the world and trying to work out what I wanted to do. And I came back and I was just looking for work. And in the interim, I was working on a building site. And a friend of mine contacted me saying there was a vacancy at this recruitment business, and I went along, and I quickly found this was something I could be really good at. And as I say, I was very average at town planning, and there's nothing worse than being average at something, because you can probably take some pleasure about being really bad at something. But I thought, actually, if I really commit myself, I can be really good at this. And I enjoyed working with people. I enjoyed an environment where I got rewarded for performance. I remember in local government working with a group of guys. One person just took the mickey, he didn't really do anything at all. And another guy gave 100% all the time. And at the end of the year, they got exactly the same annual increment. And I thought, this can't be right. So I suppose that's how I got it into the first place. And as a recruiter, I was always fascinated with what made one person more successful than someone else. Was it about natural born talent, or was it about other things? And what I soon found is that most of it is in the head.
Yeah. Did you have any people that sort of doubted you did you turn around to people and say, I'm going to be the top of that company in the UK one day, or did you announce it, or did you just quietly sort of work your way?
No, I think what it was, and in fact it was very similar. I mean, Sally Gunnell and Dame Stella Rimington, the former head of MI5, both have a similar mind, I think, to me, in as much as I always felt that I could do my boss's job better than they could. So I was only looking up one run of the ladder.
You be careful, mate, because I might be looking at you and thinking, I can do this better than he can, you know what I mean?
So I was just looking at, so once I got that person's job, I thought, well, actually, I can do that person's jobs better.
Yeah.
And for example, Sally Gunnell said that, when all she wanted to be was the fastest girl in the school.
Yeah.
And once she was the fastest girl in the school, all she wanted to be was the fastest girl in the borough. And then from the borough to the county, and then southern England, bit by bit. And Dame Stella Rimington actually the same. She didn't set out to be head of MI5. She set out to do the next job on the ladder.
Yeah. It's I found myself you meet certain people. I mean, I can remember flying over to LA a few years ago, and I was with a guy in Death Valley. He was in the national newspapers, and I was like, God, I just got out of my army unit. And I thought, this guy's incredible. He's doing massive. And then I flew over and I was like, it was great what he was doing, but I just thought, I reckon I could do what you're doing or more than what you're doing. And then even though I hadn't even been in my local newspaper, about 2 years later, I hit the nationals then. So you would say, what would you say to people about if they want to be in a certain position, just get as close as you as you can to the person that's already in that position, that high position?
I mean, that might work. I think it works differently for different people. I've had the absolute privilege to meet some amazing people, multimillionaire entrepreneurs,
billionaires.
Billionaires,
Yeah.
business leaders, Olympic champions, even an Apollo astronaut. And I'm often asked, of all these people, who's made the deepest impression upon you? And to be honest, the answer is quite easy. I met a young woman about 3 years ago. Her name is Sophie Christensen. Sophie spends probably 5 or 6 hours every day in a wheelchair. She can't hold a pen in her fingers. She jams it into a fist and she writes like that. She can only drink through a straw, and her speech is terribly slurred. And Sophie's got cerebral palsy. And I met her at Royal Holloway College, which is part of London University, to present her with a first-class honours degree in mathematics. And I asked her the question. I said, Sophie, with everything stacked against you, why do you think you've been so successful? And she said, success in anything comes from a decision to commit. And that statement got me thinking about language, words, and I'm thinking, commit, that's a big, heavy, responsible word. And it makes me reflect on conversations we overhear when someone says, in the new year, I'm going to try and get fit. Yeah. Actually, I'm going to learn Spanish.
I've never heard anyone say that.
I'm going to try and learn Spanish.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and lose a bit of weight. And they're almost betrayed by the language.
Yeah.
Whereas commit is a promise to deliver. And within 6 weeks of me meeting Sophie Christensen, she won 3 Paralympic gold medals at London 2012 to go alongside a first-class honours degree with maths. So I would say all of the people that I've met that have achieved real success, one, have chosen to be successful, and they've been prepared to commit. I interviewed a diver, a guy called Leon Taylor, who I've become very friendly with, a really nice guy, and one of the questions he puts to people is, so have you got a quitting strategy? i.e., have you got an excuse that you're going to roll out? And it is, well, I was too busy.
Yeah.
I was too busy to get fit. And I had things to do with the kids. I couldn't learn my Spanish. So the reality is, if I think you make a decision to really commit to something and you focus on that, then you can achieve incredible things.
Yeah. How important is it to associate with the right people?
I think positivity can rub off. I'm not sure about having heroes, because I think if you have a hero, you tend to follow in their footsteps, and you might want to choose a different course. I think having lots of conversations with people, I think can make you realise that the impossible is certainly very possible. It's self-limiting, isn't it? I mean, if you think of something as basic as Roger Bannister's 4-minute mile, that was considered to be impossible. Mm. Once he broke it, it then got broken quite a few times because he showed that the impossible was possible. And certainly, I think, often we put limitations on ourselves that don't need to be there. But to me, success starts and finishes in the head.
What would you say is the biggest enemy of success then, or achievement?
Enemy of success?
Enemies of success, of achievement?
I mean, the difficulty, again, fixated on language. All of the very successful people I've interviewed in business or sport used as part of their language focus, where they place their attention, what they focus on. And again, often I ask people, what do you mean by focus? And a lot of people recognize that to be successful, to commit, they've really got to be focused on doing something. And therefore, that focus, almost by definition, ends up there being selfish. They're pursuing their goal and objective. And consequently, they have to have either a group of people around them that are prepared to put them first rather than themselves, or the fact, actually, people around them suffer. You know, so therefore your children don't see much as they might want to. Your partner maybe doesn't feel that you share the responsibility, and being in any relationship or family is compromise. And I would say a number of the Olympians I spoke to all said that once they retired and became less focused, more empathetic, a better husband or a better father, they were happier, but they lost their competitive edge. So in a sense, one makes choices, but one may make a price, pay a price. Taking on prodigious challenges means that certain things have to go by the wayside.
It's like you interviewed Richard Branson a few weeks ago, and of course, when he jumped in that balloon, I mean, that was a heck of a risk. So, do you think it's possible to have to be a high achiever and to have some sort of balance in your life?
I have to say, is it impossible? I don't know. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Very difficult, but you have to have, I think, a group of people around you that are prepared to put you first. And what I'm very conscious of, again, always interested in language, whenever you see an Olympic champion interviewed, let's take someone like a Mo Farah or a Jessica Ennis. The first thing they do is to thank their team. Now, we tend to think of Mo Farah and Jessica Ennis as being an individual athlete. They're not in a team sport, they're not in a relay team, but they thank their team because surrounding them, they have a coach, they have a training partner, they have a physiologist, a sports psychologist, a masseur, a nutritionist, and they recognize they can't achieve what they want to achieve unless they have a group of people offering support around them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So a support network would be pretty critical. And
how important would you say people's skills would be?
Well, all of the people I've met would say trying to get the balance of the two is the mental approach,
apart from
which is more
Gordon
important.
Ramsay. I don't know if he's read any people skills books.
But again, I understand that Gordon Ramsay is not the exception by any means. I think many, let's say, driven people want to get it right. They're perfectionists.
Yeah.
And, I would say there are a lot of people who probably didn't necessarily enjoy the experience of working with maybe Gordon Ramsay, that actually would never have, given that opportunity up in terms of what they might have learned along the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes we have to pay a bit of a price for the learning that we take.
Yeah. Say someone with very low self-esteem, and they just want to achieve the next. You run marathons before. I mean, let's say someone overweight, they're 2, 3, 4 stone overweight. They've got low self-esteem. They've never got out of the house. How do they get their minds around it to achieve that first, like 5K or 10K run or something?
Well, I think first of all, success will be defined by the individual. So. Success for you will be not only completing the marathon where you run every step of the way, success for you will be actually achieving a performance goal. So it might well be that you do not consider yourself a successful marathon runner until you're sub 3 hours, for example. For that individual, just completing the marathon will be the success. Whether they walk or run all the way, whether it takes 4 hours or 5 hours, they just have a different definition of success. But it's about breaking it down. And in fact, sometimes, my children will point out some, grossly overweight person, running down the street. And I always say, good on them.
Yeah.
Because that may well be their first run. It might be a half a mile run, but in 6 months' time, they're running 3 miles every time. They then enter a 10K race. They then enter a 10-mile race. They then enter a half marathon. And 3 years later, they achieve their personal objective was to be a sub 4 hour marathon.
And they're much fitter than all of the people that
absolutely
laughed at them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then at that stage, the people that generally have laughed at them, they have to say, "Oh well, fair play to you, to what you've done." Do you read books?
I do. I am a voracious reader, but
that's just a big word. That's English posh word, people, and I'm Welsh, and I'm like, come on now.
No, but in as much as I don't just read, business books, management books, self-development books. I read lots of books.
You're in the Harry Potter.
And I can take, lessons and meaning from lots of different things.
Yeah. Do you listen to any sort of motivational tapes? Have you gone down the sort of track of like the Tony Robbins or the Zig Ziglars or anything like that? Have they been an influence?
No, I haven't, but I've read, authors I really enjoy, and I would recommend to anybody, would be one, the Canadian Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
Wrote a number of great books, but particularly in terms of success, his book, The Outliers, which is what differentiates those people, is fantastic. And Matthew Syed, who is the sports writer for the Times newspaper, wrote a brilliant book called Bounce, which is the talent myth. And again, it's about balancing, is it about talent or is it about application? And both of them talk about 10,000 hours. To achieve excellence in anything requires 10,000 hours of practice.
So, because I was listening to someone the other day, and he said it was a tape on YouTube, and he said that 10,000, he doesn't believe that, but I think there's truth in that, surely.
Whether it is exactly 10,000 hours, but it's about applying yourself, and certainly going from being, someone who's passed all their piano grades to being a concert pianist. Okay, there's talent involved, but it requires practice every single day. Yeah. And therefore, again, is someone prepared to commit to that practice, or have they got a quitting strategy? And their quitting strategy is, I couldn't do that. I got late home from work that day. You couldn't do it. And certainly, when I was training for marathons, the test was not going out for a run on a lovely summer's evening. The test was you're late home from work. It's pouring with rain. It's blowing a gale. You're meeting people in an hour's time. Do you just say, I'll forget it tonight? Or you say, actually, I can squeeze in a 40-minute run. And when you actually do that, then actually you're committed to doing it.
That's it. It's the dedication, isn't it? And that persistence.
Yeah.
You've got a few books out. Tell me about the books that you've got out.
Well, I've written lots of different books. The first two really examined some of the characteristics of career success. So some of the things that we've already touched upon. I've done books on leadership. I've done a book called Mind Games, which look at how elite sportsmen and women mentally prepare and perform. Certainly a phrase that sticks with me, which a number of Olympians talked about, is that once you're on the start line, every individual athlete has a voice in their head. And what that voice says to them will often determine whether they win or lose. Yeah. So again, it goes back to choice, back to the power of the mind. And my latest book is a reinvestigation of my dad's first murder case.
What?
My dad was a murder detective at one stage.
Oh, right.
And I wrote a book called Murder Without Motive, which re-examines his first murder case.
My mum would like that. She likes a good murder, people. That's what she likes. The old Jessica Fletcher.
Oh, yeah.
The old Miss Marple and Sherlock Holmes. She loves all of that business. I haven't agreed this with you before we started talking, but I'm going to put you on the spot.
No problem.
Can we get somebody a signed book off you?
Yeah, I'm sure we can.
In a competition.
Yeah, no problem.
That's brilliant. You're going to be in a competition soon. If you click the like button, we'll have a scroll through, and my son, my baby boy, normally he presses the button.
Good stuff. Okay, well I'll give you a copy of Murder Without Motive when you leave.
Murder Without Motive, people.
Yeah.
And how can people get in touch with you? Website, first of all, books, Amazon, they can go onto Amazon. Straight
onto Amazon, all my books are Amazon. If they go to my website, which is simply jeffgrout.com, it's got all my books, all my press articles, and then there's film footage of me interviewing some of the people we've talked about.
Fantastic. Jeff Grout, it has been an absolute honour.
Pleasure.
Pleasure, mate. Okay. Thanks very much.
No problem. All okay?